It's Friday, so instead of starting off with something too dark, we're going to have a bit of a laugh. Joe Biden finishes reading a sentence from the teleprompter with, quote, end of quote, repeat the line. Joe Biden, once again, reading the teleprompter verbatim because his brain doesn't work. This is not the first time that Joe Biden has read the prompter verbatim, but here's where it gets so juicy. White House staff and previously the media have tried to defend Joe Biden pulling a Ron Burgundy. Now, perhaps the story is not the most important thing in the world. Joe Biden was talking about an executive order pertaining to abortion rights. So we can talk about that, too. There's also some really damning information related to Joe Biden allowing U.S. strategic oil to be exported to China through a company that his son is involved with. We'll get into all the details on that as well. And that's dark stuff. But while this may be silly and it may be funny, there are many, many circumstances where Joe Biden has said nonsense gibberish words and even confused countries or outright alluded to war with other countries. Okay, we got to talk about two things. We need to expose as many people as possible to the insane things that Joe Biden says and break down how the media manipulates you. For those of us that know Joe Biden gaffes, we can point to the video, but then what happens is the White House comes out and says, he was saying, end quote. People say that all the time. And he said, let me repeat the line. That's the narrative that goes out through the fact checkers. I will prove that narrative wrong. You see, what happens is those of us who actually listen to the president, be it Trump, and we know the media is lying about what Trump really said, or Biden, and we know the media is lying about what Biden really said, we know. But regular people who only get their news filtered through the lens of the corporate press don't know. Donald Trump was accused of calling white supremacists very fine people. It never happened. In fact, his actual quote was, I am not talking about the white nationalists. They should be condemned totally. That's what he said. But the media lied, and Joe Biden lied. And then Joe Biden said, Batacaf care, Trinidad Shabbat pressure, next now recent. He called Syria Libya. He accidentally alluded to going to war with China. And every time this happens, the media covers it up. That's what we need to expose. We need to show the people who don't believe it the videos in the full context. Don't believe me? Maybe you're one of these people and you're like, this dude's got to be lying because I saw the news. Trump said all those things. Okay, let me show you the videos. Let me talk to you about the serious ramifications of Joe Biden's inability to speak properly. And of course, for those of us that just want to find humor in everything, we can have a good laugh at the insanity that is Joe Biden's inability to speak. Well, actually, I should say it's kind of scary and it's kind of sad. It is funny in a certain sense. But when you think about how the president might accidentally call for a military strike in Libya, things are actually kind of scary. Look, I understand there's a lot of issues with Donald Trump. I hear you, man. He may have spoke clearly, but he was kind of a dick in a lot of ways. I mean, look, he called Stormy horseface. Didn't he call Rosie O'Donnell a fat pig or something like that? I don't know. Look, that's inappropriate. I understand it's funny when you're a celebrity or a comedian or you're trying to do shot content, but when the president is speaking. So I think it's a fair criticism. I do. And you should also think it's a fair criticism when we say Joe Biden's inability to speak is going to get people hurt. So let's read the news. Before we get started, my friends, head over to timcast.com and become a member to help support our work. Click that sign up button in the top right. Become a member. You'll get access to exclusive segments from the Timcast IRL podcast. The new show, Tales from the Inverted World. These episodes are up to an hour long, investigating, in season 2, the lost Confederate gold. It's a really expensive show to produce, and we're hoping that many people will want to sign up and watch the new shows we're launching. So please support our work. We want to turn Timcast into a streaming video on-demand service like Disney Plus, like Netflix, like the Daily Wire. We want to create content for regular people. We want to get away from all that political stuff. But of course, Timcast News, and of course, I'm political and I'm opinionated. Support our work, but don't forget, smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel. Hit that little notification bell. Apparently that matters. And share this video everywhere you can, because this is what's really important. I'm going to break down how the media lies to people. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe I'm too biased and a lot of people just won't want to watch this, but I'll try. if you know people who don't believe it, if you know people who believe the media, show them this video, because I'm going to walk you through it and break it all down. Of course, I only use NewsGuard certified sources. Here's the video posted by the Daily Wire. Joe Biden finishes reading a sentence from the teleprompter with end of quote, repeat the line. Let's just listen to it.
Power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not.
Let me just play for you that again.
Consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so. End of quote. Repeat the line.
End of quote, repeat the line. Those are teleprompter instructions. They're not supposed to be read. This is Joe Biden reading the instructions verbatim. Remember just recently, he was holding up that card and it said, you address the audience, you take a seat, you shake their hands. He has cards telling him what to do for whatever reason. But this, I'll tell you what this is really about. Now, when I saw this, I laughed my ass off. It's hilarious. He's pulling a Ron Burgundy. It's not the first time he's done it. But what's really funny is how they're trying to lie. It's not the first time either. In this tweet, Emily Simons, who is the White House assistant press secretary, said, no, he said, let me repeat that line. No, he didn't. Are you nuts? The gaslighting. And now here's why they do it. Because the media, when they pick up the story, they will say conservatives accused Joe Biden of saying thing. White House rejected that, saying, no, he said this thing. And people who get their news filtered through the fake media will believe it or at least be confused. Benny Johnson chimed in saying he didn't, though. Why lie? And he made another video showing it over and over again.
End of quote. Repeat the line. So, end of quote. Repeat the line. So, end of quote. Repeat the line.
End of quote. Repeat the line. Now, hold on. Some may try to make an argument that he's just saying end quote. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll get to that. Here we have Christina Pshaw, the spokesperson for Ron DeSantis, says, everyone can see the video and hear what he said, yet you are lying about it. Do you think 1984 was an instruction manual? I'll repeat this for all of you. The reason why she said this, these people are evil. They don't care what you think. They know you know they're lying. They know you know that they are lying. But there are regular people in this country who don't know, and they will open up USA Today. And it will say conservatives accuse Joe Biden of reading prompter instructions. White House says this is wrong. They'll then include her statement saying Joe Biden actually said, let me repeat that line. Clearly, the conservatives are not right? Then they'll show it to all your friends who will be like, you're wrong. Sorry, you're crazy. That's what they have been doing. Take a look at this story. From November 23rd, 2021, the New York Post reports, end of quote, Biden's Ron Burgundy moment was part of the script on teleprompter. President Biden appeared to have a Ron Burgundy moment Tuesday while reading a speech about gas prices off a teleprompter, but the reference turned out to be part of the script. Biden was compared to the fictional newscaster from the movie Anchorman when he recited the words end of quote after referencing a statement from the CEO of Walmart. However, it turns out Biden was actually trying to end the quote and move on to another point. Oh, New York Post, thanks for clarifying for me. And by the way, you may have heard the CEO of Walmart yesterday on the steps we've taken. He said, and I quote, the combination of private enterprise and government working together has been really successful, Biden said. He went on to say, all the way through the supply chain, there's a lot of innovation. Because of the actions we've taken, things have begun to change. End of quote. Do people routinely say end of quote? No, they don't. Some people might say end quote, but typically that is not common in colloquial English these days. But sure, by all means, give Joe Biden the benefit of the doubt, and I will still prove you wrong. First, the New York Post defending Joe Biden? We have this from Newsweek around the same time. Fact check. Did Joe Biden accidentally read teleprompter instruction during his speech? And what do they say? They say it's not true. False. The phrase end of quote was not a teleprompter instruction accidentally read by Biden. It was part of the speech used to bookend the Walmart CEO's remark, which Biden began citing seconds earlier with the phrase to quote the Walmart CEO. That is giving him the benefit of the doubt. Now, okay, in that instance, I could understand you might be like, okay, maybe he was just saying end of quote. Maybe. Why this time did he say repeat the line? Why did he say that? No. They're instructions. You want to know how I know? First, I'll get there. Even Fox News. Biden appeared to read end of quote from teleprompter, but was actually quoting a business leader. So here's all I did. When you pull up Joe Biden's speeches, he doesn't normally say end of quote. Here's one. He says, tomorrow I'll be awarding the highest honor that can be given to a civilian, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, to our dear friend, Rich Trumpka, who fought so damn hard to protect, applause, for the protection of these pensions. He once said unions, quote, we do America's work. Unions do America's work. Wait, hold on. He didn't say end of quote. How am I supposed to know? Does that mean that everything he said after this is part of the same quote? Wow. Rich Trumpka went on to say, this 4th of July, let's remember who is the backbone of this country. It's you, the American worker. Wait a minute. That was Joe Biden saying that. That's not a quote from Trumpka. Why didn't Joe Biden, when he issued a quote, say end of quote? How come so many times that Joe Biden is speaking and quoting, he doesn't say end of quote, except for 2 times when people noticed, called it out, and then the media tried to deflect. Yo, the dude can't speak. You want to play games? Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, from News 18. Joe Biden just described America in a single word. Huh? He was trying to say something like, I spent times in the foothills of Afghanistan or something like that. They got a video of it? Oh, here we go.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the
Come on. Is it so hard to believe? Now, look, please listen. I don't care that Joe Biden said, end of quote, repeat the line. So what? It's the media manipulation and lies that we're trying to break through. And now I can show you how they do it. That's the point. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. You ready for this one?
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
True international effort to pressure.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
True international effort to pressure. True international effort to pressure. What does that mean? We've tried to decipher it and tried to break it down for all of you, but to the best of our abilities, we just don't know. True international cooperation under pressure is the best thing I can come up with. Now, as for the he was trying to say it can be summed up in a single word. I was in the foothills of Afghanistan or something like that. And instead he went, if he said that, can't you believe he said end of quote, repeat the line as instructions on the prompter? We're not done. Biden leaves Michigan rally confused with his latest senior moment as he claims he and Obama believe it's a right to have Badacath care. What? Do we have oh no, I don't know if they have it. They have the video here. Joe Biden said Badacath care. I think he said Badacath care. They say Badacath care. Well, there you go. These are NewsGuard certified sources or videos and recordings showing you Joe Biden can't speak. Now, many of you may be saying, Tim, so what if the man can't speak? And I'll say, fine. You don't care that he read the instructions off the prompter. Honestly, I don't care all that much. I think it's silly. But the media lied to you, right? Okay, you still believe the media is telling the truth and they're more right that Joe Biden was actually saying end of quote, and let me repeat that line even after what I've shown you? What about Joe Biden just saying gibberish words? Is that still not enough for you to recognize there's something wrong with this man? Okay, how about this? Biden's latest Taiwan gaffe stokes tension with Beijing. From Forbes, President says U.S. would defend island militarily if attacked. White House says Biden only promised Ukraine like weapons aid. This is what they do. Do you think China did not hear Joe Biden threaten military action against China? They heard it. They heard it loud and clear. And then the White House came to you and said, don't listen to the right-wing media. They're lying. Joe Biden simply said he'd provide aid. It was a mistake. You're wrong. Do you think China believes the White House when they say ignore what he said? China probably knows that Joe Biden ain't all with it, but they don't care. They're not stupid. And at the very least, you can argue Biden really did gaffe. Do you think China cares? Okay, here we go. From The Independent. Stammering Biden confuses Syria and Libya. U.S. President Joe Biden had a senior moment. They call it a senior moment. Oh, geez, that's offensive to seniors, by the way. During a G7 press conference on Sunday, as he repeatedly confused the Middle Eastern country Syria with the North African nation Libya. The 78-year-old was speaking about ways of cooperating with Russia ahead of a meeting this week with the country's President Vladimir Putin. We can work together with Russia, for example, in Libya. Yeah, he said it.
We could work together with Russia, for example, in Libya. We should be opening up the passes to be able to go through and provide food assistance and vital assistance to a population that's in real trouble. I think I'm going to try very hard to. It is. And by the way, there's places where
he said Libya instead of Syria. Now, again, you come to me and you say, Tim, so what? So what is this? When he effectively threatens military action against China, that's a real risk of war. When he says Libya instead of Syria, you have to wonder what happens when there's a real military conflict and they say, Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, where shall we engage in the missile strikes? And he goes, Libya. And they go, sir, Libya? Libya. Don't you mean? I said Libya. And then come on, man. What happens when Joe Biden gives the wrong country or the wrong origin? It could be anything. This dude is not with it. Now, I want to address some important news. The important news is, what was he actually talking about when he gaffed? Because I don't want to just sit here and complain about the media lying to you and Joe Biden being unable to talk. He was talking about something, and here's what they were talking about. Biden executive order taps multiple federal agencies to secure abortion protections. Joe Biden will sign an executive order to help safeguard women's access to certain kinds of abortion procedures and contraception, just 2 weeks after the U.S. Supreme Court issued a ruling overturning Roe v. Wade. Quote, President Biden has made clear that the only way to secure a woman's right to choose is for Congress to restore the protections of Roe as federal law. Until then, he has committed to doing everything in his power to defend reproductive rights and protect access to safe and legal abortions. This is what he was talking about when he made that silly gaffe. The gaffe should not overpower the real news that's happening, that Joe Biden is signing an executive order, that this will have a profound impact on this country. But I do think it's important to point out the media lies, and that's why I decided to lead with it. Plus, it's Friday. I thought it'd be more fun to lead with something that's a bit funny. But let's talk about what's not funny. Let's talk about what this president is actually doing when he is of presumably sound mind. This is a shocking story that should make any one of you enraged. From the Washington Free Beacon, mind you, a NewsGuard certified source. Biden sold 1 million barrels from U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve to China-owned gas giant. Yeah, let that one soak in. The Biden admin sold roughly 1 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to a Chinese state-controlled gas giant that continues to purchase Russian oil, a move the Energy Department said would support American consumers and combat Putin's price hike. Biden's Energy Department in April announced the sale of 950,000 Strategic Petroleum Reserve barrels to Unipec, the trading arm of the China Petrochemical Corporation. That company, which is commonly known as Sinopec, is wholly owned by the Chinese government. The Biden administration claimed the move would address the pain Americans are feeling at the pump and help lower energy costs. More than 5 million barrels of oil released from the U.S. emergency reserves, however, were sent overseas last month, according to a Wednesday Reuters report. At least one shipment of American crude went to China. The Biden admin also claimed the Unipec sale would support American consumers and the global economy in response to Vladimir Putin's war of choice against Ukraine and combat Putin's price hike. But as the war rages on, Unipec has continued to purchase Russian oil. In May, for example, the company significantly increased the number of hired tankers to ship a key crude from eastern Russia, Bloomberg reported. That decision came roughly 1 month after Unipec said it would purchase no more Russian oil going forward once shipments that have arrived in March and due to arrive in April were fulfilled. The White House did not return a request for comment. Its decision to sell barrels from the country's strategic petroleum reserve to China, to a Chinese conglomerate, comes as the American public increasingly sours on Biden's energy policies. According to a January Gallup poll, roughly 3 in 4 Americans are not satisfied with the federal government's national energy policy, the highest level in roughly 2 decades. Power the Future founder Daniel Turner admonished Biden for selling raw materials to the communist Chinese for them to use as they want. Quote, "We were assured Biden was releasing this oil to America so it could be refined for gasoline to drive down prices at the pump. So right off the bat, they're just lying to the American people," Turner told the Washington Free Beacon. "What they're saying they did and what they did are not remotely related." Turner also said, "The decision highlights the Biden's family relationship with China. Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is tied to Sinopec. In 2015, a private equity firm he co-founded bought a $1.7 billion stake in Sinopec Marketing. Sinopec went on to enter negotiations to purchase Gazprom in March, 1 month after the Biden administration sanctioned the Russian gas giant. Biden campaigned heavily against the oil and gas industry in 2020, promising to end fossil fuel. He went on to cancel the Keystone XL pipeline and implement a moratorium on new gas leases on federal land during his first month in office. Biden's energy secretary, meanwhile, is working with left-wing activists who want to eliminate fossil fuels. And in late October, House Oversight and Reform Committee Democrats pushed top oil executives to produce less gas due to climate change. Gas prices have since soared to record highs. In mid-June, the national average for a gallon of gas surpassed $5 for the first time ever. Still, the White House has assured Americans that they need to pay high gas prices to support the liberal world order. What do you say to those families that say, listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, if not years? CNN anchor Victor Blackwell asked Biden economic advisor Brian Deese in late June. This is about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm, Deese responded. This story to me was profoundly shocking. That Joe Biden had sold part of any amount of our oil, our strategic petroleum reserves, to China. This company wants to buy out Gazprom. Can you see what's happening? It would seem that powerful U.S. interests are moving their resources to China. Perhaps the issue is Thucydides' trap. The U.S. and global leaders concerned that a third world war could break out due to the fact that China is a rising economic power. And Thucydides' trap dictates when a rising power is about to displace the dominant power, war breaks out. This is what you see. Powerful elites are shifting their wealth to China, expecting China to take over and for the U.S. to fall. And it may. Do you think that Joe Biden cares? His approval rating is at a record low, 38 in aggregate. It's the lowest it's ever been. Not the first time it's hit 38, but it's the lowest it's ever been. It ticked upward a little bit. It fell back down. I don't think he cares. His son's on video smoking crack and diddling himself. Joe Biden doesn't speak properly and probably does not care. He's phoning it in. I like the conspiracy theory that after Joe Biden gaffes and babbles, he walks off stage like, brr, and then immediately goes, all right, we got the speech done. Now we got to start moving these resources. I'm going to pull up the bank accounts. You got to move that money fast. We don't have much time. Clear as a crystal. That the moment he's out of the spotlight, he sharpens up. It's probably not true. I think the dude's just not all with it. But some people entertain the joke. He knows what he's doing. And Sun Tzu said, when you are strong, appear weak. When you are weak, appear strong. I love it. PolitiFact. Biden's verbal blunders, separating the real from the fake. The verbal blunders. They try so hard to make it seem like Joe Biden is not broken. Biden's misstatements about numbers, both real and clipped. I'll tell you what I don't like and what is true. Often, people will take a statement from Joe Biden and they will cut out what he says to falsely frame. So, I will go back to the and I'll play this for you again.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him... . .
Okay. It stops at 8 seconds. Because after Joe Biden says, I was in he stops and goes, I was in the foothills of Afghanistan or something like that. Now, I don't know if they include that in any of these stories. And Kim.com clipped that part out. He didn't show you the full video, and he should, because he did say he could define it as... Joe Biden never corrected Trinidad Shabbat pressure or Batacaf care or next nalrescent. But this one he did. So we know at least what he was trying to say. Now, people do that. I don't like that. You don't need to do that. The dude clearly cannot speak correctly. He reads the prompter verbatim. Recently, we saw a story where Joe Biden was holding a card, and the card gave him instructions. Previously, we saw Joe Biden holding a list of journalists with who he was supposed to call on, and they were supposed to ask questions that were predetermined. It's all fake, isn't it? It's all one big joke. You guys ever see that movie Watchmen? I'm sorry. Have you ever read the graphic novel Watchmen? I love it. I'm a big fan. In the movie, I like the movie. I like the movie a lot. They changed a little bit. The graphic novel's pretty good. There's a character called the Comedian, and he sits down with this villain, and he says, it's all one big joke, isn't it? One big joke. Spoiler alert. The villain is actually one of the good guys. He's actually a villain, and he's trying to trick people into believing an alien invasion has occurred to stop the Cold War. The fear is that the Soviets and the U.S. will blow each other up. That's how I feel when I see all of this. It's one big joke on the American people. I'll give you an example. We're being told right now that because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, we're going to be facing a global food shortage. They say that crop yield will be down by perhaps 40%. Fertilizer exports are gone, or they're way down because we get it from Russia. And wheat exports out of Ukraine and Russia are substantially diminished. Diesel prices are through the roof, and thus farmers won't be able to harvest the crops anyway. Scary, isn't it? At the same time that they're telling us this, they're going to farmers in the U.S. and they're paying them not to farm. At the same time in Europe, farmers are being told to stop farming to curb emissions. Well, how does that make sense? Perhaps the issue is we are a pathetic and stupid species, and we're so dumb that in this serious crisis pertaining to a food shortage, you just have bureaucracy getting in the way. And if we are told to cut emissions, well, emergencies be damned, right? The reality is they know. Anyone could intervene in the Netherlands and say, start farming, guys, because we are not going to have food. Instead, they're like, no, stop. Why? Because it is one big joke being played on the American people, the people of Europe, the people of the world. This is where we're headed, man. You sit and you watch on the TV a man struggle to speak. The White House lies to you. The media lies to you. The New York Post and Fox News lie to you. They don't give you the proper context. They don't do any investigations. They just say, let us translate for this man. Fox News. It's one big joke on the American people. Why are they claiming that Joe Biden says end of quote when he doesn't? When he doesn't say it. He just read that prompter. Because they think you're stupid. Because they gaslight you. And maybe, to be a bit more conspiratorial, the point is some of us should know. You ever see that movie Idiocracy? A lot of people like to bring up Idiocracy. I have to wonder if the reason a show like mine is allowed on YouTube without being banned is because while they gaslight, they do want some people to know the truth. I mean, here's the way I put it. I got chickens. Chickens are great. But chickens are also very dumb. Chickens are smart enough not to drink water that they've crapped into, but they're not smart enough not to crap in their water. It's funny because I think about that and I'm like, maybe humans aren't smart enough for either. Isn't it funny? Humans are not smart enough to avoid crapping in their own water, and then they go and drink their water anyway. So it's kind of like, okay, maybe the chickens are a little bit smarter than us in that respect. But here's my point. If I had 10 chickens and they all kept pooping in the water and I tried to train them to stop and half stopped, but half didn't, which chickens am I going to breed? the ones that learn to stop crapping in their water. And that's what I have to wonder about all this. How do you have people like Bill Gates talking about reducing population growth while people like Elon Musk talk about expanding population? You have Elon Musk talking about how rich people typically don't reproduce, don't have kids. And he's the outlier because he has tons of kids. Idiocracy is where we are headed unless we actually address these things. And maybe that's what they are doing. They're eugenicists. Now, personally, I think everyone should just have kids, and we should just hope that diversity of the gene pool carries us properly like it should. The fear, I suppose, is that rich, successful, and smart people don't have kids, meritocratic individuals don't have kids, and dumb people do. I'm not entirely convinced that's the case. The reality is it's actually not about intelligence. It's about tradition versus progress. Conservatives have kids. Liberals don't. Liberals have some kids, but they mostly don't. And when they have kids, so often they'll have an abortion. They're more likely to have abortions. They're more likely to sterilize their own children. So perhaps the future is just going to be conservative, be it stupid or smart. Maybe intelligence isn't the ultimate factor in all of this. Maybe if there are enough people to vote for someone like Joe Biden, one of the stupidest things you could probably do, we are already living in idiocracy. I don't know. I don't. What I do know is the media lies. And if they lie, you can't expect someone to learn and understand. If the media were doing its job and properly informing people, and it was honest, we would be in a better place. But I don't just blame the media. I blame the utilitarian democratic individuals who believe the ends justify the means. So they will put a Joe Biden in front of you who will gaffe and lie, and then they will gaslight you and say it never happened. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all then.